Hello everyone and welcome to SuttonsDaze. A couple of days ago I had a chat regarding the domestic terrorists in North Carolina taking out over 40,000 households and leaving them without power and in the cold. And things that you can do, okay, to become better prepared, or, to spur you into some kind of thought process to become better prepared. A lot of the comments that I received, I was kind of surprised, were from people saying, I don't have a whole house generator. I can't afford one of those. I can't afford a generator. I live in an apartment. Okay. A generator, at best, is a short-term solution for a long-term problem, which means it's only going to work for so long before it's useless, and it's a very expensive doorstop. Okay? The best thing to do is to figure out how to do it without a generator, because it's not always applicable. Having a whole house generator will only get you so far for so long. If there's no power, if there's no resources available to you to stay warm, to keep things electrified, to provide light, basic things that we now, from the flip of a switch, are just used to having at our leisure and our convenience. I honestly believe that while we did finally invest in a generator, it wasn't one of my immediate purchases. My immediate thing was to figure out what to do if we lost power in the long run, okay? And when you sit down and look at it from that aspect, a generator, a whole house generator, is not going to do you a whole bunch of good. Now let's take the worst case scenario out there, okay, is that it's an EMP or a solar flare that takes out our electrical infrastructure, which is aged and just in desperate need of rejuvenation. If something like that happens, your generator is useless, absolutely useless. And so while you may sit back and go, I'm covered, I have a whole house generator, I'm happy for you. It's a great thing to have. It's a heck of an expense, goodness knows, right? When the last time I looked at them, they were over 10 grand. So not everybody can afford one. I know I can't. It's just not something that I am willing to put that much money towards for a short-term solution to a potentially long-term problem, okay? What I would rather know how to do is how to survive without the generator in an apartment or in a home, in a rental, or in the house that you own. One of the many different scenarios that you can come up with how to survive without a generator. It's actually not that difficult, okay? But there are some short-term things that you can figure out that are not very expensive. I'm going to have links down below for you, but they're not very expensive. And I'm trying to look at this from all aspects, because remember, I'm out in the middle of nowhere, okay? So I don't have to deal with city sewer. I don't have to deal with natural gas. I have propane. I have a septic system. The power goes out here on a frequent basis, though I do have to admit, when we finally scraped up the cash, right, and bought a generator, it was a dual fuel generator. It can take propane or gas. My thing is, I wanted the option for propane because I can store propane. I cannot store gas for any length of time. Propane I can store for years. And so that was my number one thing, is to make sure that it used propane. And honestly, I am not looking for all the creature comforts. Do you know what I mean? I am looking for the bare necessity to get me to where I can take care of all of the things that I have to take care of. Will my chickens have light to lay eggs in the winter? No, that means we all get a break, okay? Will my freezers defrost? Only after I run out of fuel and after I get them emptied. Those were my number one priorities. My priorities are in the summertime are to make sure my freezers are able to work and that my pump for my water is able to work. And in the wintertime, so that my pump is able to work, because the freezers aren't going to affect anything in the winter, okay? I can crack the door and call it good. There are a lot of options. We have a lot of options regardless of where you live to stay warm and to be able to heat up a meal and to be able to take care of business in the meantime. One of the questions that I got One of the comments that I got is, you know, I said that I would can up everything in the freezer, but how would I do that if there's no gas? I would do that because I have created options with propane. When we redid the kitchen, did not want to can on my everyday stove. I wanted a specific burner just for canning that could deal with the weight over a long amount of, you know, time. Because constantly having to replace elements on my stove is really expensive and a pain in the butt. So we installed a propane cooktop. Inexpensive, right? Ran the propane line, and I can cook. I don't need electric to start it. I can start it, you know, with a match or with a lighter or something like that. But so that's an easy solution to be able to create a cooktop for cooking or canning if the power is out, and not have to rely on natural gas. I also have propane burners. There are these big, you know, big burners. They'll hold pots, they'll hold canners, but you don't want to put your Presto on them. You can get a diffuser. Okay, so there are diffusers out there. I'll put a link down below for you, but you want to be able to diffuse that heat if you have a Presto so that it doesn't warp your Presto, because it is a higher BTU than the 12,000 that Presto can take. So for your all-American canner though, it's great. It works great. So depending on what you're doing, you know. So I will, between those propane burners and the one that I have in the kitchen, I will get those freezers canned up before I lose 1 ounce of meat, period. Absolutely, before I lose 1 ounce of meat, they will all end up in jars, because I also have enough jars to be able to put them into. So it's taking that problem. What will I do if the freezers go down for an extended period of time and I have no generator? I have no electricity, okay? How will I take care of that? So that's where you start. That's the problem. That's the solution. Anybody can get those. You can, if you have a balcony on, you know, with your apartment, you can do it. You can, there are ways. You have to take a look at your solution. I can't offer you every solution, and not everybody has the same scenario that they're working through. You may be in an apartment with a balcony, without a balcony. You may be on the main floor, you may be on the 3rd floor. You may be in plain view, you may be hidden, you know. There's all kinds of scenarios that you have to factor in. So only you can really dig down on these problems and figure out the best way to attack them. But don't become completely obsessed with this generator notion, okay? Because a generator is not all that in a bag of chips. Best case scenario, it will buy you a little time if it's something that you can afford to do. If you can't afford to do it, then you're better off spending a little money finding these little fixes in order to make things work better for you, okay? So we're talking bathrooms. Now, if you have to use the bathroom and the power's out and you're in the city, if for a long stretch of time, okay, that may be a problem, because if the sewer is not working, if it's not running, eventually that stuff's going to start backing up, and that is ugly. So how can you work around that? As a prepper, I have more 5-gallon buckets than I do hair, okay? I've got 5-gallon buckets everywhere. I've got 5-gallon buckets for the animals. I've got 5-gallon buckets for us. I've got stuff stored in them. I don't have stuff stored in them. I've got, you know, they're everywhere. So what can I do? They sell seats for $15 that you attach to a 5-gallon bucket. You put in a good, strong trash bag, okay, non-breathable trash bag in there, and you can use that. You put in some cedar chips or pine chips or whatever into that bucket. It helps, you know, cover things up a little bit. It's a simple solution. It gives you the comfort and stability of the seat on the bucket. It's an easy way to handle it. That is the cheapest method for handling that. And then when you get to the point where it's time to close that up, you tie that thing in a knot and you take it and you put it in the trash and you replace the other bag, okay? Somebody mentioned somewhere that you can even put a little bit of pine sol in there to help kind of kill the smell. I hate the smell of pine sol, so I won't be doing that. But, you know, you can close the lid, you can put it in the garage, you can do whatever, okay? So that's a simple, easy solution for something that you can do. There are headlamps. I have showed them a lot of different times. I'll have a link down below. For they're like my binky, my head binky, right? Only they have a lamp on them, and those are great when you have to walk around in the dark. No hands needed. You can see what you need to see, get to where you need to get, and they're fairly They don't use a lot of power. If they have batteries, that's great. You can also buy ones that are USB rechargeable. And, you know, you just have to figure out the problem first, and then look for solutions that fit your scenario. I have always said that one of the easiest solutions for heating up a meal is a fondue pot. Fondue pots you can find for $1 at your local thrift stores, right? You don't need all the accessories. You need the pot and the thing that holds it up. And then you can put a tea light underneath it. You could put a little Bunsen burner thing underneath it, whatever, and it heats up enough to be able to heat up that food that you've got stored up in your jars, or in that store-bought canned soup, or, you know, whatever the case may be. It's enough to provide you heat to be able to have a warm meal when it's cold out, and it requires nothing else. That's it. Nothing else. A fondue pot is going to cook dinner. I mean, it's that simple and that inexpensive. Another thing that people talk about is, you know, because of the lack of generator, I don't have emergency power. Now I'm going to show you a little something that we have here, and it's actually very highly rated on Amazon. Phil, I'm not kidding you. Okay, so this is a Noco Booster Plus GB40, and this one I believe is the 1000 amp. It is. It's 1,000 amps. Look at it. It has these that comes off if you want it to for storage. Phil leaves this in his truck for a month, brings it in, recharges it, leaves it out there again. It holds a charge for a good long time. In the colder weather, you know, it may go down a little bit faster, but he leaves this charged in his truck. He'll bring it in for a day or so, plug it in, let it get all charged up, and then he'll put it back in his truck. How good does this work? It has jumper cables, my friends. He jumped our friend's backhoe with this. A backhoe. A big backhoe. So this will jump your cars. This will do all that. But it also has all of the ports, USB and the one for your phone. I think, you know, depending on your phone. But definitely it's got a USB so that you can charge your phone. You can charge your headlamps. You can charge whatever. And this has a lot of power stored up in it. So for $99, because I think that's what it's going for, you can do that. You can do 1 or 2 of those. Keep them plugged in, keep them charged up, and that way you've got that backup power. I am a little bit obsessive about having little battery banks everywhere, right? And I have them everywhere, but this one stays in Phil's truck because he can jump people's cars. He can do all kinds of stuff with it. Or a backhoe. It jumped a backhoe, okay? So having some kind of emergency power, I've got 2 things down there. Now, one of the things, I have a computer, obviously, okay? I have a computer, and because our power is so wonky, I have what they call an uninterruptible power supply. It's a box, okay? But it's a battery also. So if the power goes out, my computer doesn't shut down. And it buys me time to save my documents, to do other stuff, right? Now, if your internet's out, your internet's out. There's nothing you can do about it. But you can also find a home wireless router that can pick up, you know, your internet signal. As long as your internet is up, you'll be able to connect to it, right? But that uninterruptible power source, if the power were to go down and I was even slightly concerned that it was something a little longer term, I would immediately unhook that and plug in everything that I needed to plug in until that battery was dead, because it has a really good long charge on it. I have a link down below also. It saves my computer from sudden shutdowns. It gives me that backup power source that I might need in case of an emergency for a short time. Again, these are short-term solutions for a potentially long-term problem, okay? But it can charge if I don't have it charged, which I do have it charged, my NOAA weather radio, okay? Or you can get the ones like I've got, you know, I've been promoting for years that you can crank up. If you have rechargeable batteries, you can plug those into that, right? Or rechargeable flashlight, you can plug that into there. Again, all of that will be in the links below. You need to stop worrying about the fact that you can't afford a generator. Not everyone can afford a generator. I can't afford a whole house generator. Seriously, for $10,000 or more, I have better things to spend my money on, okay? because I'm looking at a longer term problem. And if I focus on that longer term problem, my solutions are going to be something that will work in either a short term problem or a long term problem. My solutions are going to be hand crank. My solutions are going to be, you know, rechargeable things that I can somehow recharge for a little while to get me where I need to go. They're going to be propane based. They're going to be a bucket with a seat on it that I can use for a bathroom, because I don't trust the city water or the city sewer to not back up once everybody starts using it, because they don't have any idea how that will impact with no power. They don't understand that it will start coming back up into your homes, okay? So a generator is not the be-all, end-all for preparedness, not by any stretch. It's all those little things. It's those $5, $10, $15, $100 things, okay, that will give you the biggest bang for your buck during a short-term or a long-term problem. Power goes down. It's been 4 hours, and the powers that be say everything in your refrigerator is no good. I actually knew somebody that did that. I actually knew somebody that threw out, they had just gone grocery shopping, threw out almost $400 worth of food because the power went down for over 4 hours. Okay, not something I would ever do, okay, because, yeah, pick and choose your battles, okay? Would I throw out mayonnaise? Yes. Would I throw out everything in there? No. That doesn't make any sense. But what you want to do is you want to use the stuff in the refrigerator first, then you move on to your freezers, okay? But they say 4 hours. Freezers may keep stuff frozen for 12 to 24 hours if you keep the doors closed. But I've actually had it last, you know, a couple of days with no power, and there was no problem. You keep the doors closed upon threat of life and death, okay? If you open those doors, I'm going to kill you. They're going to find your body. But do not open those doors. And everything in there was fine. No problems at all. So it's really going to depend, again, on where you are, what your circumstances are, what your temperature is, that kind of thing. What you want to pay attention to is your water. Remember that you can sanitize clear tap water with 1/8 of a teaspoon of bleach per gallon of drinking water, okay, for drinking. And you can drink it per gallon of water. 1/8 of a teaspoon of bleach per gallon of water. And it's absolutely safe to drink. Is it preferred? Of course not, but it's safe, okay? Do not use scented bleaches. They're a waste of money, and you cannot use those with your drinking water. So just don't use them. They're not good. Things that you want to keep an eye on is to keep your water supply up. I don't have any space to store anything. I can guarantee you that if I came to your house, I would find space to store stuff. If you want to make the sacrifice and make it a priority, you will make it a priority, okay? You don't need a generator in order to make all of this happen. You really, really, really don't. Preparing for a power outage, you want to make sure to pay attention to your refrigerated food, your refrigerated medications. You need to find a way to keep those medications cold, right? If there's insulin, I don't know what else. Honestly, I'm not a medical professional, but find a way to keep them cool. Find a way to keep them cold. This is going to be harder to do in the summertime than in the wintertime, but find a way to keep them cool. We will delve deeper into that, I'm sure. But my first thought is dig a hole. If it's hot outside, dig a hole in that ground underneath someplace really well shaded. Put in some insulation somehow and bury that stuff so that it stays cold, because it is colder in the ground than it is above the ground. Medical equipment isn't going to work. Do you know, all you APAP, CPAP, BPAP users, right? This right here is the difference between a good night's sleep and not a good night's sleep. Having something like this to plug in your APAP, CPAP, BPAP machines into makes all the difference in the world between a good night's sleep. So if that's something that you need, then this battery backup is something that you need. Heating and air conditioning, you know, air conditioning, we're going to have to take a look at that as it gets closer to air conditioning time. It's winter time. People have said it in the comments forever. Put up a tent. Get a cheap pup tent, okay? Or create one under your dining room table with your blankets. Create a tent because it will enclose that body heat in that small area and make it safer for you to stay warm. If you can't, not everyone can do a wood burning stove. I absolutely get that. I live where I live for a reason, okay? Not everyone can do a wood burning stove, but you can do a Mr. Buddy, and you can stock up on the heating things that you need to make that work, the cans of fuel that you need to make that work. You can find safe ways to make yourself warm during this kind of emergency just by figuring out this is the problem, okay? How can I stay warm if we lose all power? Figure out which room you're going to turn into the room, okay? Figure out how you're going to heat the place safely so that you don't burn out yourself and all the occupants. Figure out what blankets you're going to need. Figure out what socks and hats you're going to need. You know, drill down on that problem. Lighting. Lighting, you know, is fairly simple when you think about it. Get some portable solar lights that are meant for outdoors. Get some other kind of solar lights. Get some that, you know, are rechargeable, that use little batteries, you know, that you can stock up on. There are ways to deal with the lighting, okay? Are you going to get bored? Sure you are. Cooking, remember, a fondue pot is your best friend. It is the easiest way to cook. If you are in an apartment, if you are in some other kind of situation, if you have the ability to put in a propane cooktop or to have a propane burner that you can run outside, do not run those indoors, then do that. And that way you know you've got a way to cook, you've got a way to can, okay? Don't forget that short of an EMP or a solar flare, your car can also help charge some of these things with, do they still put cigarette lighters? You know, there's a way to do it. So take a look at the problem, figure out what the problem is, and then drill down on a solution that doesn't require a generator, because they are out there. Generators are a luxury. Not everyone can afford one. We didn't have one until last year. I will admit that purchasing one does reduce the amount of times that the power goes out. It's a given fact, okay? But it's not necessary. I'll never spend $10,000 on a whole house generator. Not for all the money in the world, sorry. But we have one that will buy me time. And that's what a lot of this stuff will do. It will buy you time to get yourself situated until you can put your emergency plan into place. Emergency plan? Yeah, make an emergency plan, okay? I want everybody to be safe during these crazy times when people are going around shooting up substations and other stuff. So start with those short-term solutions for long-term problems. Figure out what works for you in your scenario, because your scenario is different from everybody else's, and you will come out of this fine. If you have any suggestions for any of this, please put it in the comment section down below. I look forward to reading all of them. Until next time, everybody, please be safe.